Charmander woke up to the sound of rustling leaves and the distant chirping of birds. It blinked its large, expressive eyes, trying to shake off the drowsiness that clung to its mind. As it tried to stand up, it felt an unfamiliar sense of weightlessness that made it stumble and fall on its belly. Charmander looked at its hands and noticed that it was not holding anything. It could not remember anything from the previous night, or any night for that matter. It was as if its memory had been erased, and it was left with nothing but its wits and its natural instincts to survive. Charmander looked around, hoping to find something familiar or someone it recognized, but all it could see was a vast open wilderness. The grassy plains stretched as far as the eye could see, and the mountains rose high in the distance. Charmander felt a pang of fear and uncertainty rise in its chest. It was lost, alone, and without a sense of direction. It had no idea where it was or how to get back to civilization. Suddenly, Charmander realized that it was not alone. It felt a warmth emanating from its tail, which was now lit with a bright, fiery flame. Charmander tried to extinguish the flame, but it seemed to have a life of its own. It was as if the flame was a part of Charmander, and Charmander was a part of the flame. The thought filled Charmander with a sense of awe and wonder, but also with a sense of danger. It knew that the flame could harm it or anyone who got too close. Charmander felt a pang of sadness and wondered why its trainer had abandoned it. Was it because of the fire? Was it because of something else? Charmander felt an urge to find answers, but it did not know where to start. It decided to start walking, hoping that it would find someone or something that could help it. It walked for hours, passing through the grassy plains and climbing over small hills, but it could not find anything that seemed familiar or welcoming. As the day grew longer, Charmander began to feel tired and hungry. It had not eaten anything since the previous night, and its stomach growled in protest. It looked around, hoping to find some berries or fruit, but all it could see were some tall, dry grass and some rocks. Charmander decided to rest for a while, hoping that it would regain some strength and figure out what to do next. Charmander lay down on the ground, feeling the warmth of the sun on its skin. It looked up at the sky and saw the clouds drifting lazily by. It wondered if anyone was looking for it, or if anyone even cared. It closed its eyes, trying to shut out the doubts and fears that plagued its mind. It hoped that it would find some answers soon, or at least find some friends that could help it navigate this strange and unfamiliar world. Charmander walked towards the pond with a newfound sense of hope. As it drew closer, it could hear the gentle splashing of water and the chirping of birds. It was the perfect place to call home. As Charmander approached the pond, it noticed a family of Pokemon nearby. There were 3 of them: a tiny baby Squirtle, its older sister Wartortle, and their father, a majestic Blastoise. The Squirtle family was basking in the warm sunlight and enjoying the tranquility of their home. Charmander took a deep breath and approached them, hoping to make some friends. As it got closer, the Squirtle family noticed the fiery tail that Charmander had. Their faces turned grim and their eyes filled with fear. They saw the fire as a threat, and they did not want it anywhere near their pond. Blastoise, being the father and protector of the family, stepped forward to confront Charmander. "What do you want here?" he growled, his deep voice echoing across the pond. Charmander was taken aback by the hostility of the water Pokemon. It didn't understand what it had done wrong. I'm sorry," Charmander stuttered. "I was just looking for some friends." Blastoise didn't seem convinced. "Why do you have a flame on your tail?" he asked, eyeing Charmander suspiciously. Charmander explained that it was born with the flame and that it couldn't control it. It told the Squirtle family about how it had been abandoned by its trainer and left to fend for itself. Charmander's voice was filled with sadness and longing as it spoke. Blastoise looked at Charmander with a mix of pity and distrust. He understood the pain of being alone but couldn't ignore the potential danger that the flame could bring to his family. "I'm sorry," he said, "but we can't have you here. It's just too risky." Charmander felt its heart sink as it heard these words. It had hoped that it could find a new home and a sense of belonging with the Squirtle family, but it seemed that it was not meant to be. Suddenly, the baby Squirtle chirped and swam towards Charmander. It looked at Charmander with curious eyes and nuzzled its tiny head against Charmander's leg. Charmander felt a sudden warmth in its heart as it realized that the baby Squirtle was not afraid of it. Blastoise saw this and frowned. He swam towards Squirtle and pushed it away. "What are you doing?" he barked. "Get away from that thing." But Squirtle persisted. It chirped and nuzzled Charmander again, refusing to back down. Wartortle, who had been silent all this while, watched with interest. Charmander looked at the baby Squirtle and saw something in its eyes, a glimmer of hope and acceptance. It realized that maybe, just maybe, it could make a friend here. With a newfound sense of determination, Charmander decided to stay and try to make things work. Charmander realized that it needed to do something to prove that it could be trusted. It thought long and hard and came up with a plan. Charmander decided to demonstrate how it could control its fiery tail and that it posed no danger to anyone. The Squirtle family watched as Charmander closed its eyes and focused its energy on its tail. Charmander took a deep breath and with a loud roar released a small flame from its tail. The Squirtle family gasped in amazement as they watched. Dad Blastoise was impressed with Charmander's display of control, but he was still not entirely convinced. He decided to create a safe spot for Charmander to live near the pond, away from any potential danger. Dad Blastoise led Charmander to a small clearing, surrounded by rocks, where the ground was damp and covered in moss. He told Charmander that it was a safe place to live, and that he hoped Charmander would understand the need to keep the fire away from the pond. Charmander thanked Dad Blastoise for his kindness and promised to never let its fiery tail cause any harm. The Squirtle family smiled at Charmander, happy that they had found a compromise that worked for everyone. Charmander spent its days exploring the wilderness and playing with its new friends, Squirtle and Wartortle. They swam in the pond, played games, and basked in the sun. Charmander felt grateful to have found such good friends and a safe place to call home. As the sun began to set, Charmander nestled into its new home, feeling content and safe. It realized that it had found what it was looking for, a new family and a sense of belonging in this vast world. Charmander knew that it could rely on its new friends and was grateful for the bond they shared. Charmander learns that baby Squirtle loves to play hide-and-seek, while Sister Wartortle is an expert at finding the juiciest berries. Dad Blastoise, on the other hand, enjoys sharing stories of his adventures as a young Squirtle. Charmander, in turn, shares stories about its own past and how it was abandoned by its trainer. As the days pass, Charmander begins to feel like it has found a new family. It no longer feels lost and alone in this unfamiliar wilderness, as it has friends to rely on. Charmander is grateful for the bond they share, and it knows that it has found what it was looking for, a new home and a sense of belonging. One afternoon, as they were playing in the pond, Charmander notices something strange about its fiery tail. It is no longer as wild and uncontrollable as it once was. Instead, it glows softly and emits a warm and comforting light. Charmander tries to focus on its tail flame and realizes that it is learning to control it. The Squirtle family is amazed by Charmander's newfound skill. They gather around, watching in awe as the young Charmander masters the use of its fiery tail. Dad Blastoise even compliments Charmander, saying that it has the potential to become a powerful and reliable ally. Charmander feels proud of itself, knowing that it has learned a valuable lesson about controlling its power. It also feels grateful to have the Squirtle family as its friends. Charmander knows that it can rely on them and is excited to see what adventures await them in this vast world. As the sun sets over the pond, Charmander and the Squirtle family sit together. Charmander feels content and happy, knowing that it has found a new home and a new family to love. The sun was rising over the grassy plains, casting a warm golden glow on the land. The Squirtle family and Charmander had just woken up and were enjoying their morning swim in the pond. Suddenly, a strong gust of wind blew through the area, carrying with it the acrid smell of smoke. Charmander's eyes widened in fear as it saw the smoke rising in the distance. It had heard stories about wildfires before and knew how dangerous they could be. It quickly realized that it had to act fast to protect its new friends and their home. Charmander looked at the Squirtle family, their eyes wide with fear, and said, "I'll handle this. Stay here and be safe." Without another word, Charmander ran towards the fire, determined to stop it from reaching the pond. As it approached the flames, it felt the intense heat on its skin, but it did not falter. Charmander gathered all of its strength and used its fiery tail to fight the fire. The fire roared and crackled as Charmander fought it, sending sparks flying in all directions. The heat was becoming unbearable, and Charmander's flame was starting to flicker. It knew that it had to keep fighting, or the Squirtle family's home would be destroyed. Charmander's tail flared up, brighter than ever before, as it focused all of its energy on fighting the flames. It felt its strength waning, and its vision was starting to blur. Just as it thought it would faint, the fire began to die down. Charmander had won. Panting heavily, Charmander turned around to see the Squirtle family watching it in awe. Dad Blastoise swam over to Charmander and said, "Thank you for saving our home. We were wrong to judge you before. You are a true friend." Charmander smiled at the Squirtle family, feeling grateful for their acceptance. From that day on, Charmander knew that it had found a new family and a place to call home. It had proved that, despite their differences, they could all live in harmony and protect each other from danger.